I think people will still keep cycling in here, but we're going to get started since I know everyone's pretty zoomed out these days. Welcome. I'm so glad to see everyone. Glow, I don't know you, but Indra's told me about you. And welcome Itzel and Daira and David and Rio. Hey, and Judy. Rio can't hear me yet. He's connecting to audio. So my name is Francesca Dubrock, and I am here with Lina Mariscal. We are both board members of Enlaces, which is a relatively new nonprofit in Anchorage, and it's dedicated to empowering, educating, and engaging Alaska's Latino community, Latinx community. And I'll just give a plug that we're working on revamping our website. We have some really exciting stuff coming up that Itzel has been working on too. We're here today with Enzina and Tristan of the Rasmuson Foundation because they're really trying to do more outreach to different communities to get a more diverse applicant pool for their grant opportunities. And this is a really, really great opportunity for creative individuals. And when I'm not helping out with Enlaces, I work as the chief curator at the Anchorage Museum. So I know well the work that they do at the Rasmuson Foundation. And I think it's a really wonderful opportunity for artists of all kinds. They cover all disciplines. So I'm really excited to see so many people here. And I would just encourage you, if you have any questions, this is intended to be like very informal and for you all to learn what you need to know. If there's any language issues, Lina puede traducir sus preguntas a español. Entonces se sienten cómodos en preguntar. Yeah, so this is just a learning opportunity. So please treat it as your your opportunity to learn and ask questions. And it will be recorded, so you can access it after the fact if there, any friends or other artists who weren't able to make it to this live event. So Enzina, she's a conceptual multidisciplinary artist and program officer at the Rasmussen Foundation. And this is her second year working on the Individual Artist Awards. She's the one with the cool wallpaper. And then Tristan is an Inupiat artist and program fellow at the Rasmussen Foundation. And this is Tristan's second year assisting in the Individual Artist Awards. And she has the amazing landscape behind her. So with that, I'll turn it over to our hosts.
Thank you so much, Fran and Lina. We are so grateful to be able to share this virtual space with everyone on the call. And Lina and Fran are so grateful for your work and partnership this year. As Fran mentioned, I am a practicing artist and have been with the foundation for about 2 years. And my role there is as a program officer, and the Individual Artist Awards is one of the programs that I work on. And I'm so lucky to share this space with some staff and colleagues at the Rasmussen Foundation. And before I introduce some of the support staff we have on the call, I will bounce it to Tristan to introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, or I guess good evening now. My name is Tristan Avenatt Morgan. I'm a practicing Inupiaq artist, program fellow at Rasmussen Foundation, and a 2-year fellowship in conjunction with Philanthropy Northwest, which is based in Seattle. So this is my second year in my fellowship, in my 2-year fellowship, and this is my second year helping out with IAA. I'm really excited to be here, and I also wanted to do a land acknowledgement before we continue our time together. So I just wanted to acknowledge that a lot of us are gathering on Dena'ina Atlanta, which is Dena'ina Athabascan land, also commonly known as Anchorage, Alaska. So a special Koinakpuk, or thank you, to the Dena'ina Athabascan peoples, the original stewards of the land, for allowing us to gather here today. And if you are not coming from Anchorage, please take a moment to thank the original stewards of your land, whichever lands you are on. And thank you. I'll pass it back to Enzina.
So much, Tristan. I also wanted to acknowledge Zuli Tristan, who is on the call with us. Zuli is program support staff working on contract for IAA and has many years of experience with the program. Zuli is on mute and unmute duty today and is also monitoring the poll in the chat box. And then Karen Lowell, who is also contract program support. Karen is a practicing artist as well and served at the Alaska State Council on the Arts for many years. Karen is our direct artist contact this year and last year. So any questions that you have will likely go to Karen's inbox and she can provide you with some direct support, one-on-one support about any aspect of the application. So real quick before we kind of jump right back into the presentation, I just wanted to set up some informational guidelines. So you can keep your video on or off to your comfort level. We do ask that you mute your camera during the presentation, and that if you have any questions that come up, to please include those in the chat. As Fran mentioned, Lena will be here to provide any interpretation or language support. So please write those questions in the chat in whichever language is most comfortable. And I will say we have enabled a translation feature in the presentation. We know that sometimes this is not totally accurate, so we just ask for some grace as we move through that process together. And I may have mentioned this, but I've forgotten to hold all your questions until the end, and we will have time for a Q&A and conversation at that point. All right, so I'm going to go ahead now and share my slides and turn it over to Tristan to take us through our agenda and plan for the night.
We've already done our welcome and introduction. This is the Alaska Native Heritage Center. This is a presentation that we did earlier today. So we have done a presentation to the Alaska Native Heritage Center. No worries.
Oh.
So we're going to go over the individual artist program, go over the award types, the eligibility and review criteria for the fellowships and the project awards, kind of go over the panel process, the application overview, and then go over frequently asked questions, and then do a question and answer segment at the very end.
Thank you, Tristan. Yeah, for a moment I thought maybe we had the wrong presentation up, but it was just my error. So we just wanted to start by kind of talking about why we chose to partner, or why we're fortunate, I should say, to partner with Enlaces Alaska this year. And this is a partnership that we hope we can grow as we move forward. Every year we assess the program and the individual artist awards for accessibility, for reach, for representation, and to learn ways that we can do better and be better stewards of all artists across Alaska. And what we found consistently over the last few years is a lack of representation in our applicant pool, which then results in a lack of representation to artists that are receiving awards. And so we've highlighted a few of those groups that we want to better serve this year. We know that if there's an underrepresentation in applications, that's a direct result of us underserving that group or that discipline or that community. And so we've started this year and will hopefully grow that moving forward next year, and have highlighted some groups that have been underrepresented. We've been working with a performing arts group. I'll show some numbers of applications in a moment. We've been working with the Alaska Native Heritage Center. We have a presentation tomorrow with Black Alaska Arts Matters, and are doing some work within different regions in Alaska so we can really better partner with groups and organizations that know those communities. We know that folks who apply to the program, or folks who hear about us are usually folks who already know about the program. And so we really want to do better and really encourage you all to give us feedback on how we can do better. Our ultimate goal is that the awards better reflect the full and broad diversity of artists throughout Alaska. And just to give you all a quick snapshot into applications each year, on average, we receive anywhere from 300 to 500 total applications. And there's 35 total awards. So it's a highly competitive process. And this was the total number of applications that we received per discipline last year. And you could see, we had 3 total applications from choreography, so dance-based artists. And what that told us was that, we know there are more than 3 dance artists working throughout Alaska. And so we had to reach out to those, to that discipline and that community more. The other thing I wanted to mention was about our fellowships. Again, you could see some of the disciplines that are underrepresented and why we've kind of shifted our focus. And I'm going to talk a little bit in a moment. We're going to start a conversation about our challenges and needs. And one of the things that is a challenge for us is that we haven't captured demographic data in the program up to this point. And so we have captured disciplines, which is why we can say only 3 choreographers applied. But unless someone self-identifies, we can't confidently say that we've had a certain number of Latinx artists apply. But we wanted to highlight and spotlight 4 artists that have received awards between 2017 and 2020. And from what we can assess from self-identification, there have been 4 out of over 100 awards given to Latinx artists. So that is a very low representation of the brilliant work that is being done out of the Latinx community. But we did want to spotlight these 4 artists and recognize their work and their achievements and contributions. So with that, we wanted to turn it back to Fran and Lena to talk with us about the challenges and strengths and needs within the Latinx community when it comes to access to these types of opportunities.
Okay, well, I mean, I think some of our participants may have comments to add here. But at least from my work at the museum, one thing that I perceive is that there is probably not enough support in the earlier phases of prepping for applying for something like this. And I think that goes for the Latinx community. I think that goes for pretty much all artists in Alaska, frankly, is that either people aren't aware of the opportunities, or when they know about the opportunities, their portfolio or artist statement or the other kind of application elements aren't quite at the level where they would be competitive. I think language access is also a big issue. I know of at least one artist who's not joining us tonight who would probably prefer to listen to this in Spanish. So I think that's another thing. But I would kind of turn it back to Lena and others on the call if anyone has thoughts about needs that you've identified.
Yeah, so I think that the biggest challenge would be the fact that it is a very competitive process, and probably not feeling confident enough that there is an opportunity for them to even be considered. Not necessarily, making the award or receiving the award, but just being able to go through the whole process. That would be one. Another one would be, of course, language, and we have spoken about that. how if there is someone that needs a little bit of support or help with the application, I think that, just empowering them to try would be very good. And just knowing about the awards, because I have lived in Alaska. I'm not an artist, but I am pretty active in the community. But I didn't know about the awards until probably when Itzel, which was I think 2017 Itzel, until she received hers. And then from there, I learned about Indra and then Brian Fierro. And so I think that just knowing for the community that, this is here for everybody is it's a big plus.
And I would also add, I think, in Zena, to piggyback on what you said about performing arts, I think there are lots of performing artists in the Latinx community that, at least in my perception, I hear more about the Rasmussen associated with visual arts. So I think that's an area where people would really be, you'd have a lot more applicants from those groups.
And, it's interesting, we're really aware of some of the barriers and lack of resources for artists. And we, last year, we started doing kind of a hands-on workshop for artists in preparation of the award. And this year, we're providing that virtually on the 28th. So this Thursday from 6:30 to 8 is a hands-on workshop that will go over all of the different elements of the award and take participants through how to put a narrative statement together, how to put an artist statement together, how can you structure your resume or your work plan or work history. And so that is happening on the 28th. And our goal is to work with the Anchored Museum to offer that on a broader scale as we move forward. We've had lots of internal conversations around the language barrier, and we know it is a huge barrier for lots of folks, and we are working on ways to resolve that. And this year, Lena has been so open and flexible to provide some support to artists who may need some translation for their applications. So if that's something you need, please let us know. We can connect you with Lena or connect you with other services for translation, specifically for the application. All right, thank you both so much for sharing those perspectives. Okay, so we did want to just kind of backtrack a little bit and give just a small taste of the history of the Rasmuson Foundation. And the Rasmussen Foundation can really be kind of the roots of it can be traced back to Yakutat, Alaska in 1955. And this is when Jenny Olson Rasmussen created the foundation. And Jenny Olson Rasmussen traveled to Yakutat as a missionary and met her husband, E.A. Rasmussen, who had also traveled to Rasmussen to be a teacher. They married and went on to run the Bank of Alaska, which is where their son Elmer generated a lot of his fortune. And when he passed away in 2000, that was gifted to the Rasmussen Family Foundation. And the family has a history of deep value in arts and deep value in Alaska artists and Alaska Native and Indigenous artists. And Elmer had a collection that is now the Alaska Heritage Museum inside Wells Fargo. And it started with him buying works directly from Alaska Native artists because people were coming from out of town and out of Alaska and buying these pieces of art and artifacts and taking them out of the state. And so the connection to arts and Alaska artists is deep rooted in the Rasmussen family. And that has really kind of bled into the foundation's values. The Individual Artist Award program began in 2004, and this was part of a comprehensive foundation-wide strategy to invest in arts and culture in Alaska. So I noted that, in 2000, much of Elmer's wealth was gifted to the foundation, and then 4 years later, the board met and really decided to create this broad initiative. And that is an initiative that invests in artists, invests in arts and culture organizations, and invests in the community, specifically to the arts. And the Individual Artist Awards came out of the conversation that the board was having with the community, and they determined that the best way to support arts and culture in Alaska was to put money directly into the hands of artists, which is very unique and is very different than any other program at the foundation. The mission of the foundation is broad. It's to make a better life for Alaskans. And so the foundation invests in arts and culture, but also education and human services and health and homelessness. But about 14% of that is towards the arts. I will pass it over to Tristan to talk about the purpose of the Individual Artist Award program.
Kind of jumping off what Enlaces has shared, it's to allow a dedicated time, in this instance, it's a year long, for the fellowships in the program or the project awards, time and resources for serious artistic exploration and growth. That's what we're trying to do with the Individual Artist Awards, and to strengthen Alaska's cultural resources overall, and not just for Alaska Native artists, but for all Alaskans and all the rich cultural values that we see and rich cultural practices that we see here in the state. So since 2004, the program has provided over 550 grants to artists representing more than 50 communities throughout Alaska. And the 3 awards that we'll be talking about today are the Distinguished Artist Award, the Project Award and Fellowship, and Enlaces will talk about the Distinguished Artist Award. Oh, no, not yet. I'm talking about these ones first. So for the 3 types of awards, and I just want to give a real quick shout out to Lily Hope. She has created the award necklaces in the past, and I believe these are either from last year or the year before. So the fellowship is $18,000, Project Award $7,500, and the Distinguished Award $40,000. And Fellowship Awards is 10 unrestricted grants, and that's for a short-term project for over a year long. And then the Project Award is $7,500. That's 25 of grants are given out each year. That's for a short-term project. And then the Distinguished Artist Award is 1 grant a year, and it's selected by nomination. So we do ask that people nominate distinguished artists. And the artist career are emerging, mid-career, and mature. And the application period, we are in the application period right now, and that ends March 1st. And there are some other important dates to keep in mind in between those as well. Enlaces?
Fantastic, thank you. So yeah, we'll just briefly mention the Distinguished Artist Award. It is a separate process than the Project and Fellowship Awards. Nominations open in November, and this is a single award of $40,000 to a mature artist who has been working at an advanced level of their craft for multiple years and has a demonstrated and recognized contribution to arts and culture and creative accomplishment in the state. We do this by nomination. So someone can self-nominate, and we encourage you to think about someone who you think is worthy of this award. We start collecting those nominations in November, and they close in December, and we are currently in the panel process for that for this year. Our distinguished artist from last year was Wayne Price. So again, we encourage you to think about some artists that you think are worthy of this recognition for next year. So I'll talk real briefly about some specifics around the Project Award and the fellowships. But before I do that, I just want to recognize Itzel is on our call, and we are so lucky to have her join us. And if I can put you on the spot, Isel, would you mind talking about your experience with the project award that you received?
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you, Encina. Well, first of all, it was an honor that it really surprised me, but not only me, but the all everybody that was behind me, because um, there's I had a lot of support from a friend, Indra, who's herself is a painter, is an artist as well, and Lina and many people in the newspaper, where they opened the doors for my writing, for my poems. And just I want to tell everybody that to feel that, you know, we can open these kind of doors, that we can touch with our stories or art, or to the rest of the community. And it's an amazing opportunity to get our voices and our community soul out there. The process was very technical at first, but look for another points of view, you know, for people to read it, proofread it, and give you listen to their suggestions. Reach out. Don't feel alone. Um, there's a community, and I just wanna say that even though it was very technical and intimidating at first, it went through. We as a team, you know, even though it was an individual artist, I feel like there is a team behind, and I will just encourage you to go for it and reach out. And for me, it was an amazing experience. Um, what else I would like to say? I just didn't feel at first that I was you know, that was worth of getting it, because we don't see ourselves, of, you know, Latino artists usually in these environments, you know, like in the museums. And um but we have to believe, you know, start taking on those spaces, and or words or paints or dances, or art, you know. We have to get out that colonialized mind that have taught us that or things were folklore, were not art, you know, for were. So I think this is a very important step to decolonize art. And so I'm grateful for these efforts, and I'm grateful for all the people that support all these, you know, from the people in Enlaces, and all the good allies that we have. And I just I say, you know, like I did it with the support. I think we can all, you know, step in. I'm feeling hopeful, especially with these new times. Thank you, Encina, for letting me share my experience
Oh,
with the
well, thank you
Rasmussen.
so much. Yeah, it's so lovely to see you again too. Thank you again, Itzel. So yeah, I'll jump back into the presentation. So the project award, and this is the award that Itzel was just talking about. It is a $7,500 grant, so it's the smaller of the two. It's available in all career stages. So whether you're an emerging artist, mid-career, or mature, and all disciplines of art. And Tristan will talk about the disciplines that are, you know, recognized by the foundation. And we try to have those disciplines be comprehensive of any type of art making or creative practice. And we know that artists may overlap. So a visual artist could see themselves as a craft artist, depending on the work they're doing, or someone could apply under choreography, but also folk and traditional arts if the dance form they're doing is rooted in tradition or culture. So there is a lot of overlap, but all disciplines are available in the project award category every year. As Tristan mentioned, it is for a short-term project, so projects that can happen within a year, that's the grant period. We are being flexible with that time frame because of the pandemic and the uncertainty of what the next year will unfold. But we do want to encourage artists to apply for projects or support that can be realized during the uncertainty of COVID. So, if someone's applying for multiple workshops out of the country, that might not be something that's really achievable. So we ask for folks to apply for projects that can be accomplished, or to include a plan B. And there are approximately 25 project awards awarded each year. Fellowships are the higher of the two. A fellowship is an $18,000 grant. This is more for kind of an unrestricted project that will also occur within a year for mid-career or mature artists. And there's also a lot of overlap in, what someone might apply for as a project award and a fellowship. But a fellowship is really an opportunity for an artist working at a more advanced stage to do or take on or learn new things that will help propel them more forward. There are 10 fellowships awarded each year, so even more competitive. And the fellowship disciplines, only half of the disciplines are awarded each year. And so in 2021, of the 11, choreography, crafts, folk and traditional arts, literary arts, and performance-based arts are available for mid-career and mature artists. And I do want to honor what Lena was saying about the competitive nature of this grant. Last year, we received about 300 applications, and there were only 35 total awards. So it's very, very competitive. Several people will apply year after year. Karen Lowell, who does our program and artist support, is on the call. Karen is a past recipient of the award and had applied 6 years prior to getting one, or 6 times, excuse me, before she received an award. Some artists might apply and get it on their first try. So it is very, very competitive, and we want to acknowledge that and honor that as well. All right, and that takes us to the disciplines. Tristan, will you take us through those 11?
So again, all 11 artistic disciplines are available for fellowships. That's choreography, crafts, folk and traditional arts, literary arts and script works, performance arts, media arts, multidiscipline, music composition, new genre, presentation interpretation, and visual arts. The only 5 disciplines that are available in fellowships for 2021 are choreography, crafts, folk and traditional arts, literary arts and script works, and performance arts. So those switch each year. So next year it will be the other 6. So if you are interested in a fellowship in the 6 that aren't available this year, you will have to apply next year, which means your application is just that much more stronger and you've just spent that much more time on it. But if you are interested in a fellowship, all 11 artistic disciplines are available. And we understand that there are going to be also a lot of overlap. So if you are interested in applying for a fellowship, but you may fall into another discipline that's only in fellowship, it might be good to look at, well, do I want to apply for a fellowship or do I want to apply for a project award? Which one is going to benefit me more? Which one fits my project more? Which one fits what I need in order to grow? So if you are a mid-career or a mature artist and you're looking at whether or not to apply for a fellowship or a project award, look at what artistic disciplines are available and look at what you fall under. And if you fall under several of them, really look at the guidelines and read through the guidelines under the description for each discipline and see if there might be some wiggle room to move around. So really this is just based off of what you feel like you fit in the most. Zena, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I just also want to think about what Isel was saying about people who might not see themselves as artists or might not see what they're doing as arts. And this is something that comes up a lot. We might be working with an individual whose work is rooted in their identity and culture and in generations. It might be an art form that goes back generations, and it's who they are and what they do. And they might not see themselves as fitting into one of these categories, or they might not see a place for themselves in these awards. And, you know, we really want to encourage folks to reach out to us if they have questions about any of these categories. And really, these categories are intended to be comprehensive and to recognize all of those different types of arts and crafts, and the traditional work and the generational work, performance-based work. And really just reach out if you have questions about whether or not a specific project would work, or what discipline should someone apply under, when there's a lot of that flexibility. You know, there could be a Mexican folkloric dance company that could apply under choreography, but also could apply under folk or traditional arts based on which discipline felt most true to them. So yeah, I would just finish up the disciplines with that comment of really tapping into that artistic self. And then another change that we introduced last year, because we recognized that the award process was only open to individual artists. And we acknowledge that art making and the creative practice is a really collaborative process and collaborative by nature. And we had been overlooking a lot of individuals who worked within a group or a collective setting. And so we opened up the project awards and fellowships to artist groups or collaboratives. And so that is 2 or more people working together on one project and filling out one application. And the same guidelines apply for individuals as groups, you know, career stages, disciplines, etc. And we can speak more intensely about some of those guidelines if folks have questions. But one important thing to know about the groups and collaboratives is that if an individual is part of a group, but also has their own individual practice, they can only apply for one or the other. So someone can't apply as part of a group and then also apply as an individual for a separate project. They'd have to wait a year. And if that group was awarded, they would have to wait 3 years. So it's a bit of a choice that an artist has to make. All right, and then Tristan will take us through eligibility and criteria.
So eligibility, you do have to be an Alaska resident, so living in Alaska for at least 2 years, similar to getting your PFD. Remain a resident through your duration of the grant. So if you are awarded, you do have to stay in Alaska, be an Alaska resident during the duration of the grant, and you do need to be 18 years or older. So this is only for adults, and also currently producing work. This does not mean you have to be a full-time artist. You just have to be producing work. We understand that a lot of artists have another job or multiple jobs to sustain their practice. Individuals who are not eligible to enroll are going to be anyone who is in a degree-seeking program related to the arts and or the artwork that has been completed when you are enrolled in the degree-seeking program. So if you are going to university for the arts, you have completed work and you just graduated, and the only work that you have is work that was created during your time at university, you will not be able to utilize those work samples in applying for the award, or if you are currently enrolled in a degree-seeking program related to the arts, then you won't be able to include that work. And then work cannot be primarily of research, scholarly, or commercial nature. And we'll touch on that in a second. And then the criteria that we have is the same criteria that's given to the panel that review all of the application. That's artistic quality given experience. We're not going to judge an emerging artist next to a mature artist. That wouldn't be fair. Creative accomplishments. This does not mean that you need to have work in studios or perform in any sort of theatrical setting. This just means that you've had kind of those markers that you can share on your resume. The impact on your growth as an artist, you do need to share how this will help you as an artist moving forward, whether that's able to practice your art or be able to provide any tangible materials for yourself as an artist as well. And then also completeness of application. Insina?
Yeah, so just to touch back on the commercial nature, we recognize that artists need to have some commercial elements to their work. They need to sell their work or present their work in different ways, but we don't see that as commercial. The easiest example that I give about identifying if your work is commercial or not is if there was a graphic designer that worked for a design firm and was making logos or advertisements for several businesses, used those as their work samples. So it was work that was done under the business, used those as their work samples, and then was applying for a project to buy equipment for the business. So it's not their individual arts practice. It wouldn't be advancing or reflecting what they did as an individual. It would be more of a business venture. And so that's what we mean by commercial. If an artist is recording an album and will then sell those albums, we don't consider that a commercial part of art making. Okay, so real quick, we do want to leave some time for questions, so we'll just talk a little bit about the panel process. So this is a outside panel. It is a little different. It is a little different than the Distinguished Artist Award, which is a Alaska-based panel. And so we gather about 14 different panelists from across the US that represent different disciplines, different communities. We try to have a diversity in the panel that reflects the diversity of Alaska across from art making to identity to group, etc. And these panelists are working artists or community representatives, organization representatives, foundation representatives, etc. And the first stage is that each panelist will review the application of their discipline. So if we have a choreographer as a panelist, they will review all of the choreography or movement-based work, etc. And they will come up with their kind of list that they want to advance. The second phase is where we take all the panelists within a discipline. So we would take the 2 or 3 choreography panelists and we would group them together, and then they would discuss the applications they reviewed, move those on into semifinalists. Every discipline panel does that, and that comes up with our final selection where all of those semifinalists are then debated over who will be the top 35 that will then move on to win the award. So it's a quite lengthy process. We do a lot of work on the front end with the panel to orient them to Alaska. We have them talk to Alaska artists and different kind of regional representatives to talk about what it means to be an artist living and working in Alaska and what the unique challenges are. So that panelists come prepared and with an understanding of the unique situation and environment that we have in our state. Okay, I think it's 6:45 and I want to be mindful and respectful of everyone's time. So I don't know if there are any questions. Fran or, yes, Fran.
I just was wondering, Enzina, if you were going to cover the other grant we spoke about, the adaptation.
Yes,
one.
I will jump right to that.
Sorry, it's just another funding opportunity. Yeah. So I want to make sure people.
No, thank you. Yeah. So, the Alaska State Council on the Arts is a group that we partner with, and we provide funding to the State Council to administer a number of programs. And one that I'm so glad Fran reminded me that I wanted to make sure we shared with everyone is a new program called the Adaptation and Innovation Grant Program. It's available to all artists working in Alaska. And the individual artist grant is $2,000. And this is this one's more, I would say it's more flexible than the individual artist grant. It's reviewed by council staff, and they can reach out and ask you specific questions about your application. And the intention of the Adaptation and Innovation Grant is to support you as an artist to continue doing your work through the pandemic. So it's a COVID kind of responsive grant. The guidelines of how you can use it are really flexible. If you need to use it to get technology so you could do your work and put it online, you could use it for that. If you've lost some income from exhibitions, I think there's flexibility for you to use it for that. So it's pretty flexible, and its intention is to either innovate or create new ways of continuing your practice and reaching your audience, or adapting and changing and growing your practice during COVID so that you can keep doing it. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to turn it over to Fran and Lena for questions in case we get any. Let's see. So if you have not put a question in the chat, you're welcome to shout it out.
Does anybody have any? Oh, Itzel, you had a question?
Maybe this question will give more time for the rest to think about. But it was very interesting to see that you are accepting now collaborative projects. I didn't see that before. It's the first time I know about it. But my question is, what happened? I see that you alternate arts. But what happened if, for example, if you have literary and then paint, or like visual as your partner?
Oh, that's a great question. So we do have a multidiscipline category. So if you are an individual artist that works as a visual artist, but you're in a partnership with a literary artist, you could apply under multidiscipline. And the same if you are an individual artist that does several different types of work, you could apply under a multidiscipline project.
Gracias.
Great, thank you, Itzel.
Si no pueden o no se sienten con confianza de hacer las preguntas en inglés, pueden hacerlas en español y podemos traducir.
Hola. Hello, mi nombre es Ciro Anaya.
¿Sí?
Quería preguntar si tengo que ser ciudadano americano para poder tener la beca.
I would like to ask, this is from Ciro Anaya, do I need to be a U.S. citizen in order to receive an award?
Just need to be an Alaska resident for 2 years. So if you can get a PFD, a permanent fund dividend, if you can prove your residency as an Alaskan resident for 2 years and will be a resident for the year of the award, you are eligible.
¿Entendiste la respuesta, Ciro?
Gracias, muchas gracias. Sí, tengo 2 años de residencia, poco más.
Okay, good.
Muchas gracias.
Bien.
¿Otro valiente?
We have a question from Judy in the chat here. She says, so an artist doing visual art with writing would apply under multidisciplinary?
I will say yes, comma, and it depends on the project and it depends on the type of work that you're doing. Judy, I would ask you to reach out to us. Karen, you can contact Karen directly at arts@rasmussen.org. I think Karen might have put her number in the chat. But yeah, if you do visual work and you do literary work, and you're applying for a project that combines both, you would apply as multidiscipline. If your visual work has text on it, so if it's a two-dimensional piece, a painting that involves text as the surface, that would still be just a visual art discipline. But if there's a different literary component separate of that, then you could apply under multidisciplinary. So it depends a little bit more on what the visual art with writing looks like.
I have a question, and I may have missed it a little bit earlier, but I'm wondering. I saw earlier that that the work that you're applying for cannot be research heavy or like scholarly work heavy. So I guess sort of I would want to. What is the sort of balance look like? I think for instance, like researching for a product that is in language, like crossing and navigating a language barrier. Part of that I imagine would fall under scholarly or research work. I think potentially, in being able to create the product, but maybe.
Yeah, I see Karen shaking her head, so I'll bounce it to her. I have a response too, but I'll bounce it to Karen first.
I think there's so many perceptions about what is considered art or what's considered a project, but I think any kind of investigation is worthy of applying for this award. So if you're talking about language, if you're talking about culture, if you're talking about doing deep dives into examining what the fabric of that looks like, that would be a legitimate project. I think often when we say the word art, people just automatically go to visual art. And I think with these 11 disciplines, there's so much room for that kind of investigation. And you're totally welcome to call or talk with me. I would be glad to work through how you describe the project idea. Okay.
Yeah, and I would just I would tag onto that and say, we've had a lot of artists that apply for research, and that research would deepen and their craft and their work and connect them to the history of that work. That is different than scholarly or research-based. One example, we had an applicant last year that was applying for materials to build a curriculum to teach in school to students. So that is, that would be seen as more scholarly or academically driven, and not driven in their own practice as an individual artist.
Well, we had another applicant who was doing some sound-based work and built a proposal to go to places to harvest sounds from individual locations as the basis for these compositions. So that is completely legitimate. Does that help?
Yes, actually, thank you so much, and actually, thank you just to the whole team for putting this together. It's really, really enlightening, and I think, like Itzel said, it's really part of this is we don't see ourselves or see our work as being a part of this Western idea of what is art. So it's really valuable, and so thank you all so much for sharing.
And I have to say, this is just a note about the panel. We bring people in from outside who are versed in this kind of discussion, and they do not shrink from it, and they welcome it. So please apply. And also, I would recommend before you get going, I put the link to the guidelines in the chat, and I would just go download the guidelines, print them out, read through them. It's a pretty robust application, and it might be a little intimidating and overwhelming the first shot, but you only get better the more you work on it and the more you apply. So
yeah, and I heard Fran talking about how there's kind of a misconception that it's just visual arts, and if we can flash back to the screen where it was number of applications submitted, every year the heaviest discipline is visual arts. We get more applications in visual arts than any other discipline. And we really want to encourage artists working outside of visual arts to apply. We know there are fantastic artists working in so many different genres of art. And, we absolutely honor visual artists, but we want this to be accessible to other artists as well, and recognize a variety of art forms. Yeah, we really encourage that. All right, so we're getting down to the end of our time here. Oh, great. It looks like Ciro has another question.
Hola, sí, quería preguntar sobre, tuve muchos años trabajando profesionalmente en Cuba de bailarín, y como vengo de un país donde el internet no es bueno y no tengo tampoco muchos videos sobre mí bailando, quería preguntar si mi palabra vale la pena. También tengo un documento que mi mentor hizo como presencia de mi trabajo en Cuba.
So Ciro comes from Cuba, which does not have great internet, and he would not have, I guess, proof of the work that he has done as a dancer.
Oh.
He wants to know if he could use, I think it's a letter of recommendation from his instructor, and his own word, just on, ¿es en la solicitud, Ciro?
Sí.
Yeah, on the application, if his own word would be good, rather than having his work to show, because he doesn't have that.
That's a hard one. And it's tricky because the panelists, there's a balance between what's presented in the narrative, in the resume, in the artist statement, and in the work samples. And the work samples are where a lot of the panelists will look at your work, look at what you proposed, looked at your career stage, and get a good sense of who you are as an artist. And so it could be a barrier if there aren't those work samples available that speak to that practice, that specific art practice. I'll bounce it to Karen, but Lena, I'll allow you to, or give you time to translate that part.
Ciro, ¿sí entendiste lo que está diciendo o necesitas que lo traduzca?
Sí, ¿me lo puede traducir?
Dice que va a ser un poco difícil porque son dos cosas diferentes. Una es la descripción, la narrativa que estás dando en la solicitud, pero entonces también es importante tener el trabajo documentado. Y Karen va a darte otra respuesta, pero dice que tiene que haber balance, o sea, no puedes tener solamente una cosa cuando necesitas las dos para presentar tu solicitud. Go ahead, Karen.
Bueno, lo que tengo, ¿me
Yes.
escucha?
Sí.
Sí, lo que tengo son algunos videos, no mucho,
Ujú.
y lo demás, lo más reciente, han sido trabajando aquí en la escuela.
So he does have a few videos that he could use, but most of the work that he has documented would be here, in Alaska, what he's been doing for the past couple of years, I think.
And he mentioned he was dancing for a decade in Cuba, so
Yeah.
maybe that's something he could outline in the written portion, and then just include work samples from Alaska.
Yes, absolutely. So, yes, we would encourage you to include that information in your application, to use the work samples that you have. We also opened up the work samples for kind of choreography or folk and traditional arts, to be flexible, so you could upload video or a still image. So we encourage you to upload what you have and then include in the either descriptive portion the work that you've done decades prior.
Sería bueno que tuvieras lo que tienes y luego hicieras una descripción de qué es lo que estás incluyendo para que ellos tengan una mejor idea del trabajo que has hecho.
Ok, muchas gracias.
Tristan, were you going to say something?
Just to add on to that, we do ask for recent work samples. So within the last 5 years. So that shouldn't be an issue at all if he has only work samples within the last few years. Definitely use those. That's what we ask for.
Okay. Ciro, ¿sí entendiste eso?
No, ¿me puede traducir?
Sí, dice que piden muestras de tu trabajo por los últimos 5 años, entonces el trabajo que has hecho recientemente califica muy bien para la solicitud.
¿Cómo? Repite, no escucho, no entendí.
Ok, te van a pedir muestras del trabajo que has hecho en los últimos 5 años y el trabajo que has estado haciendo en los últimos años califica para lo que vayas a someter.
Ah, ok, muchas gracias, ok.
Yeah,
and I included this in the chat, but as Tristan was saying, work samples should be within the last 5 years. If there's an important reason to include older work, we just ask that artists indicate why they're including that work and how that relates to their current work or their current project.
And also, I think because we are operating under a pandemic, people are coming up with very inventive and resilient ways of documenting work that's getting made or has been made. And I think that's going to be an interesting thing that is looked at this year, you know, just in terms of how we keep making. And it might not be like 100% professional. I know a person who's working at home and is making these little videos, but they completely capture what is happening now. So.
I just saw another question in the chat. Can an artist return to and expand on a former project? Yes, if that is changing or evolving or turning into something new, if it's a newer take or an expansion of that project, it can't be something that's already been done that would kind of backfill the funding for it, but it can be something that is being reimagined or redeveloped. All right. Oh yeah, go. No, go for it.
Question. Every artist can submit only one proposal. One.
Yeah. So Itzel, I think you were asking. I had a hard time hearing. Only one proposal from one artist.
Yeah, it's limited to one proposal.
Yeah, you can only apply for either a project award or a fellowship. You can only apply as an individual or as a group or collaborative.
Gracias.
Of course. All right. Well, I think we'll bring it to a close. And I just want to extend sincere gratitude to Enlaces for allowing us to share this space with you all tonight and for the great work and partnership that you're providing to artists this year through the Individual Artist Awards. Do you have any parting words you'd like to share?
I think that I would just want to thank you for the outreach that you're doing. And I want you to know that us Latinos are very good at sharing information And I feel that this is going to help us go out into the community and tell our friends. And, we're just like little seeds that go all over the place, and we will be hopefully bringing more people in, with time. We just need to feel comfortable and empowered, which is what Enlaces is trying to do with our community. And, just knowing that, that we are being included and invited should be a really good message for our community.
Yeah, thank you so much. And do share the workshop that's happening on Thursday with your friends and people you know who are artists who might want to join.
Thank you, Fran. And I will turn it over to Tristan to lead us out.
I have nothing else to say other than thank you for joining us. Go eat something, drink some water, look at the Rasmussen website, take care of yourselves. And yeah, join us on Thursday.
Everyone.
Bye, guys.
Bye.